Okay. All right. Thank goodness. And share again. Yeah, the whole UI of Zoom changed a little bit. All right. So like I said, just a little quick, it's kind of dry this time of year for news and events. Just a couple quick things too, more FYI for folks. I saw this, I think on one of the WordPress blogs recently, but Laura isn't here, but Laura is from the Learn.WordPress team, and Peter helps out and participates. I'm not sure if you're still that active with them or not, but they've released, I think, an amazing looking course, the beginner WordPress user course. I'm not sure when exactly this was released. I certainly noticed it for the first time, but pretty in depth. So again, free if you're a beginner trying to learn WordPress. Definitely check this out. I'll put the link afterwards in the chat. But the course syllabus is kind of learn the essentials of creating and managing your own website, from mastering the user-friendly interface to crafting engaging content. And just to jump out for a sec to show you what it looks like. It's, as I said, there's many, I forget how many sections are in this, but it starts from the very basics of like installing a theme, but then it gets down to some pretty deep stuff around, security and spam, SEO, et cetera, et cetera. So certainly worth checking out. Again, it's free. I think the Learn WordPress team has been doing fantastic in terms of adding additional content there, building out courses, et cetera. So that's something I just wanted to bring to people's attention. Peter, do you know anything about this course? I'm not sure if you were aware of like when it got released.
Yeah, very recently. I'm not sure about the details of this specific course. I do know that in the next month, we're going to see a lot more things coming to learn in an organization. One of the biggest challenges has been the way courses have been organized and reaching different people different ways, and courses for those who are presenting versus those who are learning, and also that they're working really hard on making that whole experience a lot better and a lot more appropriate. So this is kind of the beginning of that, right? Kind of right out of the gate saying, if you're a beginner, here's how you can go through it. And then, I think one of the important things that they're communicating, trying to communicate, is the idea too, that it doesn't have to be so specific too, right? Because everything is broken down in smaller parts. So if there's something you need to learn, you can find that. So they're working really hard to make the information a lot more available, findable, organized in a way that makes sense. So it's all part of the ongoing redesign of .org.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. Like I said, especially so, check it out. If you're a beginner or you want to brush up on something, you don't have to start from the beginning to the end. You can jump into different sections as well too. So again, if you're not familiar with site editing, probably good to just jump into that section. So that's something. And just another real quick kudos to the Learn team as well. As many of you probably attend their meetups or remember their meetup, they're very active. Like they put us to shame easily, but again, a bigger group doing it. So we're going to be talking about WordPress 6.6 tonight, but really just brushing the surface of it. So if you want to get more in depth, or you missed something, or want to double check what we're telling you, July 24th, 2 o'clock Eastern time. Laura, like I said, who normally, she quite often attends our meetups. She's one of the presenters, and Bud Kraus. So it's going to be a detailed overview of 6.6. So if you found us on Meetup, search for Learn WordPress online workshops. And again, they have a ton of different types of meetups, both from beginner to intermediate to expert stuff. So again, free, worth checking out. All right, and a tool or tip plugin spotlight. Peter, have you got anything for us?
Yeah, I do. And before I get to that, I'm going to share 2 more events.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let me get everything as I move tabs and windows around. It's sort of the thing that I do all the time. Looking into a Chrome extension called, I think it's called My Mind or something. This idea that you can have artificial intelligence manage your various bookmarks and things. You can save things because it can organize. So that will help a person like me kind of manage all those things a bit better. And when I do that, and if it works, I'll share that with everybody. Okay, so do you see my screen?
Yep, I see Stellar WP.
Yep. So Stellar WP is a company we like a lot. I know Sue especially is a big fan, for a whole lot of reasons, including what they do with Academy, which is a place that got free and premium uh, courses there, live events, things like that. Really, really good stuff. But it's also a lot of the products that we like, Cadence and Events Calendar give. These are some really good LearnDash. They're all really good products. They are having on Friday a free WordPress event. So in just a couple of days, this Friday, um, a free event, and I'll drop the link there. But quite a roster of people in this, a lot of familiar faces and all. So it's an all-day event, all day, most of the day event coming up. So that's one. And then at the end of the month is another word session. Can't believe, another year goes by, and so word session comes up again. So that's July 30th. Also a free event. A lot of good speakers are adding a lot more in the next few weeks, so they haven't announced to everybody. But all of these are really great, especially, you don't have to go there for the whole thing if you're in if you just want to hear at Spark, Josepha Hayden Chumplessy she's the 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 key person. I forget her exact title, but for WordPress.org. So she's going to be the keynote speaker there. So if you want to just go to that track, but they're really good events. So I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
After this, I'll post them in the chat. The tool I was going to share today, and we can share more. Again, this is free form during summer school, so there's any number of things I can show. But this is just something that I used recently. It was part of the when we were experimenting with or doing our best to show people things about the query loop and variations of the query loop and all. When you're showing that information, it always helps to have things to work off of. And a lot of people still use, it's still available, a tool called FakerPress, which is a way of generating posts for experimenting. But I found another one that I like called Easy Populate Posts. So it's in the repository. Again, I'll put the link in it, but Easy Populate Posts. And it's just, it's just this simple plugin, not a huge amount of installs, but we found that doesn't necessarily always mean something. But in looking at it, so I'm going to install it right now and kind of just show you, and I'm going to take it from the install. So I went out to the repository for anyone who hasn't done this, where you can just go to add a new plugin, search for it in the repository, Easy Populate Posts. I'm installing it now. I'm going to activate it, and it's going to give me a little bit of a, hey, thanks for. But when you go to it now, you have a new plugin, Easy Populate Posts. And when you first start, you're kind of hit with a big screen. If you go to settings, and this actually gets simplified in settings, but with the idea that your first time setup, so you can set up a lot of things kind of built in. And again, this is to generate a number of posts so that you can experiment. So it's great if you can use this. Go to Playground, which we can, for those who don't know Playground yet, it's a great online instant instance of WordPress that you run in your browser, and it's great for experimenting. We show you something, you don't want to do anything on your site, you just want to experiment somewhere. And what Easy Populate Posts is something that you can use to actually generate content. Like say I wanted to generate, and I don't even have to go through all of these settings, maybe approximately 20. It comes with like random tags. You can add things, you can add your own tags. So the organization of things in terms of tagging and categories and things like that, metadata, images, things like that. I'm just going to save these settings and then execute this without really doing a whole lot here. And once you do, and now it has saved these, it's created these posts. Interestingly, it didn't generate any of the images, and I'm not 100% sure why in this case, unless maybe I didn't give it the right parameter here. But with that one, click, if I go to all my posts, these are all generated posts, and I could have put at the beginning, there's an option for putting like, generated, or put any word prefix you want if you want to make sure you know which ones. But these are all basically test posts. So it's a neat way of just populating your site with some posts that you can then test with some of the other tools. So
and we may make use of that tonight to answer Trisha's question there about filtering posts. It's perfect.
Perfect. Great. We could do this. I will leave this up, but yeah. And so that's it. That is called Easy Populate Posts. It's a way of generating posts like FakerPress, which is another tool that does this.
I think I used FakerPress or one of the other ones too. But yeah, it comes in handy because sometimes you need to see that like multiple posts, especially for like I said, the blog pages and archive pages and stuff. So
yeah. When there's a new thing, I think a great example is the query blocks. Or if you want to try something, you spin up a site and you want to play with it, and you want to use some data to see what it really looks like, because it's frustrating for a new user who's just experimenting and going, why is there nothing here? Nothing's been loaded. And this is a way, if you're just trying to, if you're dabbling, if you saw something in a demo and you just want to work with some, and they're like, oh, they're using all this data, and they pulled up a query thing, and they're listing all their posts, and I don't have any posts to do that with. This is a way of just kind of populating your site with a lot of posts.
Very neat. Yeah, so keep that one site up with the loaded posts, because we may go back to that.
You got it. All right, so I will stop sharing.
Yep.
And then I'll put these links in the chat right now.
All right, perfect. All right, so like I said, what we're going to spend a little bit of time not doing like a formal presentation on it. In fact, we'll hit a couple highlights, and then if time allows, if we're not getting a lot of other questions, we can keep going over more of this. But it's WordPress 6.6. Let me share my screen. Let's see. Sorry. Share my screen again. There we go. And yeah, I'm glad Peter mentioned, I know Eileen said as well too, around WordPress Playgrounds. So if you're not familiar with this, I know we have a couple of newer folks on here. And I don't know, Peter, if you don't mind putting this in the chat as well. So WordPress.org/playgrounds. Actually, you can get to it as well from, where was it? It's somewhere here. I swear, it's under Learn.
Playground.wordpress.net.
Yeah, but it's not under the it's not under the drop down of regular WordPress.org. But anyway, so WordPress.org/playground. This feature, this tool is really astounded me in terms of like when we first saw it. I remember first hearing about this probably over a year or so ago. Just the functionality around it is great. So we're going to use this quite a bit tonight, I think, to showcase things. Excuse me. But if you're a beginner as well and you want to play around, you don't want to break anything, maybe you don't even have hosting yet, you can play around with WordPress for free in your browser. So as we go through things tonight, if you have questions around Playground, just let us know. I think there's enough people on this tonight's meetup who've played around with it and can help answer questions. So we're going to use Playground to explore WordPress 6.6. So WordPress 6.6 is scheduled to be released today. I heard there was another release candidate, RC4, that came out yesterday.
Release.
So it's still on track, I believe, to come out.
At least about 2:30 in the afternoon, I think.
Okay. All right, perfect. So it's probably out there. So anyway, the neat thing is I just clicked on it. If you missed it, I just clicked on the Playground button. What's happening here is in my browser on this tab, it's spinning up a version of WordPress, full instance of WordPress in my browser. So the neat thing, you get this extra bar on top. Again, I won't spend, unless we have questions about this later, we can spend more time talking about Playground itself. But one thing you can tell is immediately it says, okay, this is running a version of PHP as the server software, but we're running WordPress 6.6, which is what we're going to demo a little bit tonight. Storage none. What that's saying is that once I close this browser tab, it's all gone. So unless I explicitly export out my website, we can show that later if anyone's interested. But basically all changes are lost on a page refresh. You do have a couple other options. You can just store temporary storage basically on the browser, or you can store things locally. One thing I am going to check, because I think this was Peter and I, you and I were talking before, I didn't notice this, but you do have to, if you want to add additional plugins or things from the WordPress repository, make sure you check that box off. That was just stupid. I missed that before. So that allows it to do network access. So anyway, I'm just going to apply that change. Just going to refresh my environment. At this point, we're going to be looking at a completely blank install of WordPress with 6.6, the latest version that just came out today. So let's talk a bit about what's in 6.6. And normally when if one of your sites gets updated today, you'll see something like this. Every time there's a new major WordPress release, you'll get a welcome screen like this. The additional thing too is, and we'll show this a little bit later, but you can also click on 6.6 in here. It's going to give you more of a breakdown of all the features. So this is a fairly significant release. I was kind of surprised as we talked about this a bit more, dug into it, especially for the summer. There's some neat fixes in here. So we'll try to cover a couple. We'll skim over a couple of big ones between Peter and myself, and then I want to answer Trisha's question about the filtering and any other questions people have. And then for the rest of the time today, we can just keep going back to more features in 6.6 that people are interested in. So that's our goal and plan for today. So again, 6.6, I don't know where, so Peter, do you want me to start with something, or do you want to do one of the, this is how well we practice this one, or do you want to jump
Well,
in?
I think the first thing I think we should remind people is while we're showing this in Playground, if they have an existing site, the upgrade process.
Right.
And so we could just speak through that while you're showing it, and then I can show a couple things in terms of some of the tools. But if you have an existing site, and it is interesting, I found that I have some of mine on I use Cloudways as a host, and they're on auto update, which I didn't realize. So I went to go see it because I was going to show the process and go, oh, they're already 6.6. So you want to be careful with that. So one of the key things, like always, when you're dealing with things like, especially going from a major version of WordPress like 6.5, 6.6, these are considered major versions. The extra point, so it's like 6.5.5 is often like bug fixes and security things and things like that. So when you're doing that updating, making sure you have a backup is always important, because you don't know, and every once in a while you'll find something. You may have a theme author who didn't necessarily check, the on the new version. There's a whole beta testing process. You can get involved in that. We could show that later. What plugin that I've used to that's available for anyone to use to test things. But running a backup and using a backup, that the first thing is, find out if your host already offers some level of backup. I think that's one of the easiest ways to start. So many hosts now offer, and depending on what level you're paying for and all, it might be, well, we back up for a week, we back up for a month, we back up on demand, things like that. But know, what's already available to you in backup, so that you can have a level of security on that. And if you're not sure that you have something already generated in the server and something maybe up to date to right before you're going to do a backup, there are plenty of backup plugins, both free and often with a pro version. WP Vivid, Updraft. There's quite a few. Those are the, like, WP Vivid is one that gets mentioned a lot of the meetups I go to, and it's just a really easy, because I never use it until this afternoon. I said, how easy is it? It's very easy to just run a backup and to be able to roll, also go, oh, something's not working, I just want to roll back until we figure that out. And there are some people who will say, I will not update to a major version until 2 weeks from now, when the first rounds of bug fixing happen. So there's no real rush, but the timing of this meetup is appropriate to
So the one caveat to that, that's all true what Peter said. The one caveat might be if you're on more of a managed WordPress hosting plan, where you may not actually have much control if they've updated as part of your plan. But again, if there's a problem, so let's say you were on GoDaddy or something like that with a managed WordPress hosting, if there's an issue, contact your host and they'll work out the rollback for you as opposed to doing it yourself. But yeah, in general, I completely agree. It's Yeah, most of the, especially the 6.0 releases have been stable, but again, you never know. You may have an old plugin or something that just things don't work right. So good point. Let me jump in with a quick feature, and then Peter, we'll go back and forth. So I'm going to cover, as we always do in these releases, I'm covering more of the back end / full site editing highlights. And again, sorry, back to this page. I have another. We can send this out too, right? Because this is public. This is Amber's, I think, right? All the changes for this is really highly detailed, but if people really want more details, they can look at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, so there's a lot in here. We're not going to cover everything immediately unless people are interested in something in particular. I'm going to show one of the first things, which is kind of going backwards a little bit of patterns. So for people who are familiar with WordPress, if you're not a total beginner, patterns were introduced, I think, going back to WordPress 6.0-ish or prior to that. But if you had a classic theme, an older non-block theme, the way that you would see patterns would look a little bit different. So let me demonstrate this. So it'll make a little bit more sense. So right now I'm using this version of Playground has the 2024 theme installed in it by default. But I can change that. It's very easy to change themes in WordPress. I'm gonna go back to a full site editing / block enabled theme. I'm gonna go far back. I'm gonna go back to, well, let's see, good old 2017, if people remember the potted plant one there. So that is definitely not a full site editing theme. That's these days called a classic theme. So what does a classic theme mean? Again, if you're a beginner, it just means that there's some new functionality being built into WordPress to allow you to do things like edit your headers and footers easily, create page templates, so a whole bunch of other things that in the past you'd have to either do code or do other ways to be able to edit those things. So full site editing is this new feature in WordPress that allows you to do that. Well, one feature, though, that's not really part of full site editing, but one fairly important new feature that came about not too long ago is this idea of patterns. So patterns are a way to save layouts and reuse them across pages. So previously, if you had a classic theme like this 2017, if you clicked on patterns, you would see an old looking UI list. So what do I mean by that? You would see a list kind of like this of listing patterns in here. This is kind of the old user interface. Well, what's changed with 6.6 now is that patterns, you can now see them using the new, you kind of get a sneak peek of what full site editing looks like. So if I go now under appearance and patterns, this user interface, this is basically the full site editing interface, which we talked about this a few meetups back. It seems like this is becoming the future back-end user interface. They're starting to unify what's been happening in full site editing with any theme. So this will be your first taste of it. If you've never really played around with full site editor before, if you're using patterns, again, you'll get exposed to that. So that's something new. That's kind of like something people may not have seen before if you're using the classic theme. And again, once you're in here, you can work with patterns just like you would whether you're a classic theme or a block enabled full site editing theme. So for example, I'm using 2017, which, believe it or not, actually has some patterns in it. So I'll show you just real quick what you can do. Is one thing I can do is, let's say I want to, let's say if I want to modify a pattern, you can see they're locked. I can modify one, but I first have to duplicate it. So this is a copy. I'll just call it copy. I'll talk a bit more about synced and non-synced a little bit later after Peter talks. So let me just duplicate this, but here you can see now, so now I have a pattern, it's under my patterns. So again, the point of this is now back on the dashboard. Here you are, you're back into the classic dashboard, but you get a little sneak peek into the full site editing. So that's one new feature that came about in 6.6. All right, let's bounce it back and forth. So Peter, do you have something I can stop?
Yeah. Let me pull up.
We'll do a couple of these, and it's like 6:30 now. We'll make sure like we stop around, just like we'll take a pause at like 7 o'clock, see how far we get with some back and forth, and then we'll cover Trisha's question, and then we'll get back to anything we want or any other questions that pop up in the chat. So
give me just a second here.
Site export for Playground. Yep, I'll definitely cover that. That's a good one.
I have to find the one, although it's not vital for this but let me go. Okay.
I like Sue's point. If your host has no backups, get another host. Well, it works except if you're using one of the like liquid web things or something like that, if you're the person doing your own backups, but yes.
Okay, I'm gonna grab the screen. So I think one of the first things that I found that I think most of us are going to see and kind of appreciate is the improvement to the when you're looking at a post or a page, your right side options section where you have your the URL, the featured image, all of those types of things, has greatly improved. I'm just okay. There it is. I just want to make sure. So in an older version, and let's see if I've got one here that hasn't been updated. Give me
Yeah.
just a second. All posts. I had too many windows open again, like usual. Everybody bear with me. But you know what? I find it fun to watch somebody muddle through the things that I might also muddle through. It can be very enlightening when somebody who's an expert runs into an issue where all of a sudden they're finding issues with things. So this is 6.5. This is just, and I'm looking at when you open a poster page and you're looking at the post options, the page options in 6.5. This is kind of what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing, okay, it's visibility and the options that you have there, the details about the thing. Then we get into our categories. Then we get into our tags. Then if we're going to add a featured image, and depending on how your theme uses a featured image, then you get to the excerpt where you would put the details that often land in both search engine optimization, but also with many themes, when you're showing your archive page or your blog post page, and it's the instead of just the first few lines of your text, it's something you authored, you put in your excerpt, and then the discussion. That's all been cleaned up. And now what you have is you have the right at the top of the screen, you actually have the title of the post. So, and you can even edit it here if you wanted to. You can rename it. You can rename your whole post, or you could do it there. So you probably won't use that so much. You do have a featured image here. Oh, I guess this was imported. So if I wanted to change that featured image, it's right here at the top, and because that's kind of a key point. You have right below the featured image is the alt text for that featured image, which you should use. So this is in this case that was for the previous one where it was an image, but this would be I would change it to turn off that thing. Sorry, that's for this. I'm sorry. The alt text is still in the media file. It's not there. I'm used to a theme that brings that over, right? So when your images, but I want to make sure sunset over the ocean. So I'll set that. I'm setting that featured image. This is the excerpt, and this is actually and so instead of being down at the bottom, it's right here. Edit the excerpt. If there was nothing there, it'd be clear. But what's also nice is you can see it's popping out to the left. So it's kind of showing the things here. So this is all cleaned up. Your status, again, cleaner, nicer, right there to say. So whether you're choosing draft pending, you just check the box if it's password protected, for example, if you're not ready to share it with anyone. The date, it pops out the calendar. Author, if you have multiple authors, you can pick the author from here, so it kind of pops out. Template, if you're in a situation where you're using different templates for different types of content. Here's something, again, right up instead of hidden down at the bottom. It's telling you the discussion, which is comments, is closed. If you check that, you see it's open, close, and whether you're enabling pingbacks or trackbacks, which is when you're linking to a site and it tells the site. And a lot of times people just turn that off. There's no comments here. Sticky, you turn that on or off right here, which basically means it's listed at the top of a listing of posts, so it kind of stays as maybe you're featured. And then the last two now you're into the categories and you're into the tags. So that way of adding the organization data information of categories and tags, that metadata is now here. But that is such a nice cleanup from this, and where it's all kind of spread out and where you're trying to figure out where to put something and all. So I wanted to make sure that people knew that was there.
You should so Peter, I was playing with this today as well too. One thing, I'm not sure if the old one did it this way, but on the new 6.6, if you change your status from published to scheduled, you can do either scheduled there. Yeah, and so that's nice too. You can actually change the date in here. But once you do that, pick a date besides today, or pick some out in the future. Yeah, September. So
Yeah.
I get, because you had this one saved as draft. So if you do on a blank post, you know, the blue save button or whatever, the button up in the corner, that will then say scheduled instead of publish, or schedule instead of publish. I don't know if the old one did that or not. I happen to notice that.
Yeah, it does say the status is scheduled.
But that button text will actually change if you hadn't published it before. So just something to be aware of.
Let's see. I'm on a,
Yeah, if you do a new one, if you did, it would switch that there. But
yeah, I think it's actually waiting to refresh.
yeah, I like how they cleaned it up. It's definitely, it's gonna take a little bit of getting used to. If you're like, where is the,
Yeah.
you're used to a couple of things, like, how do I set this to private? It's like, oh, you click on, the link instead, and then it pops out. But
Yeah, and the good news is sometimes they move things around to make it easier, and then you're used to it. This one feels so much more intuitive. Like, it's not so different, but it's better. And I appreciate those little quality of life improvements that are going in.
yeah.
And just to check, you're gonna talk about the overrides at some point.
Yep, I can do that right now. I'm gonna do that one because that one's a little bit meatier, but it shouldn't take too long. I'll try to do like 10 minutes on it or so. So back to patterns. Let me share my screen again. So I'll do a bit of setup on this one as well. So in I think it was 6.5, we no, I'm sorry, we did an entire meetup talking about patterns and the power of building websites with patterns. So if you missed that, go back to our YouTube channel. You'll see it really is a powerful way to build. I think we even called it that: build websites quickly, build beautiful websites quickly. So it's a little bit of marketing spin to it. But one feature that was missing from patterns, and it was supposed to be there in WordPress 6.5, got moved to 6.6, is this idea of having synced patterns with overrides. So that is now finally in WordPress. So I'm going to show that, but I'll start with, I'll try to keep this fairly small. I'll talk about, I need to switch my theme. So I'm on that classic theme. So to do this, I want to go back to this 2024 theme. So let me activate that. So now I'm in this block enabled theme. So again, what is a pattern? Well, I'm lazy, and just for the sake of time, we'll look at this theme itself. As you saw, 2027 came with some patterns. Well, 2024 comes with a lot of patterns, and some of the more full site editing block enabled themes come with lots of patterns. If you watch our YouTube video from the past, you can find out how you can get patterns from other places too, not just from what's built into your theme. But just for the sake of this discussion, I want to focus on the difference between synced, non-synced patterns, and then this new thing, which is synced patterns with overrides. So let me go to, in the 2024 theme, as I said, there's several patterns in here. So if you go to the patterns, and let's look at what comes with the theme. So there's some call to action patterns. So what we'll do is just to have a simple example. So this pattern, this call to action hero pattern, comes with the 2024 theme. So by default, if I want to use this, and you can see what's in this, it's basically a headline, an image, and a button. So I'm going to make a copy of this just so I can play around with it, and I'll iterate through it as we go through the example. So as I said, these are locked, so you can't modify the ones that came with the theme, but you can make your own copy and then do whatever you like. So I'll say this is Ray's hero. And categories I'll leave the same. So for now, I'm going to start off as non-synced. So what that means is wherever I use this pattern on any page, think of it as a cookie template, it's going to apply this pattern, but the pages, the 2 or 3 different pages that have the pattern are independent from each other. So if I change the pattern, those pages will still keep the old version that they have. That's what a non-synced pattern is. So I'll show a real quick example of that. So there we go. It's a hero. And if I go back to my dashboard, so now on a page, I'll create just 2 quick pages. One will be like test 1. All right, and I don't want to use, that's a new thing that popped up. We won't talk about that right now. I'll call this, so that's my first one. And so if I want to, different ways you can add blocks. So patterns, again, you do them from the inserter, just like you do a block. There's a tab here for patterns. And under my patterns are any ones I've created or duplicated. So that one pattern, raise hero, is here. And as you can see, what it did is it basically just copied that pattern. It copied everything into here, but it's non-synced. So what does that mean? I can go ahead and do things like I can remove, let's say I don't want an image. I can delete the image. I can, mess around with it completely. I can say, this just changed. All these changes that I'm doing here are only being applied to this page. So in essence, the pattern in this case is just something that's almost used once on this page, and then there's no indicator on the page after I'm done that this came from a pattern. It just looks like anything else I could have dropped on my page. That's what a non-synced pattern is. Think of it as like a quick start or quick, almost like a block, I guess. It's like a collection of things. But what if you did want to reuse something? So let's say that hero image I just showed, what if I want to make sure that that stays the same everywhere? And if I change it in the pattern, I want that reflected everywhere. So let's go back to the patterns again. Oops, publish. Let's go back to the patterns. I'm going to keep messing around with that same pattern because hopefully that'll make this example a bit clearer. So let's start off by just making that a synced pattern to begin with. So again, I'll go to patterns. There we go. It's a little slow because it's running again. It's running my browser. This is one of the things. And then in here, I believe I have to see my side. So sync status. Let's change it to. I have to create another one. Hold on. Oops. I need to go back to. I forget how I changed the sync status to synced. I wonder if it was just when I first created it. Let me start a new one. Sorry, I don't want to get lost in that. So let me go back to, I'm going to create a new one that's synced because I think that's probably a more reasonable example. So we'll call this synced hero. So duplicate it, synced hero. In this case, when I'm duplicating it, that's when I can specify that, yes, this thing is synced across multiple locations. So again, what does that mean? Now I have 2 patterns. I have the unsynced one. It just loads. There we go. There's the unsynced one and the synced one. So the synced one, let me just make a change so it's apparent. I'll say,
Hey, Ray,
yep,
before we go too far on this,
yep,
because there's questions in the chat and
okay, sure,
but I think it is really easy to kind of confuse what patterns are, especially the way synced and unsynced and things like that are, and even how it relates to the word templates, for example.
right, yeah,
There's groups that I'm in with very advanced developers and the confusion over templates and all, but basically what we're describing is a packaged design group of blocks brought together with a layout. You can do a whole lot of designs, and then you can have fixed content, or what Ray is going to show here, ways that you can have variable content in there. But this idea that a pattern is a saved package of blocks pulled together that you can then place on your site. So instead of placing a block, now you're placing a pattern which is containing a bunch of blocks.
right.
The nomenclature, the way these things are described, you can get lost in it, and I get that absolutely, especially because the way the editor presents these things, to the benefit of cleaning up the editor, but at the same time with block themes, there's a similarity in where they're placed. Am I editing a template? Am I editing a page? Am I editing a pattern? So I just wanted to make sure that we're clarifying if anybody
Yeah,
wants.
that's good. You're right, 'cause especially templates and pattern, the names are a little bit interchangeable at times and confusing. So pattern is, as Peter said, if you just look at it, and you're right, I should have done this with the first one. If you look at this pattern, it really is just a collection of blocks, just a collection of blocks, but it's saved so it can be reused, and that's the pattern slash cookie cutter thing. So anywhere on a page, if I want this thing, this collection of all these pieces together, I can reuse that as a pattern. That's all it is. As I showed in that previous example, even when I reuse it, if it's not synced, I still have the ability to go and modify it. I can still change things. And why would I use a pattern? Again, if you want to watch that YouTube video, we go through that in a lot more detail. But that really, the idea is that you can quickly build a website with all these different parts. I mean, if you use something like Wix or Squarespace or some other of those kind of drag and drop website tools, a lot of those have similar things. So it's not just dropping a button; it's dropping a button in a group. So it's a button with a picture and a headline and all that kind of stuff, just to make things quicker to build things. That's why you would use patterns. That's a great great pause there to clarify that.
And real quick too, another thing that so always remember is you can go in and make a pattern. I mean, obviously you can download them. They come with themes and all. There's just the availability of them are so great. Maybe after this, we'll remind people where they can find them in the repository and so on. At the same time, and this is something that sometimes forgets, you might go and you're putting something together on a page and you go, man, I really like this. And I want to use this part, this layout of this type of content on another page. You could take that and save that as a pattern, even though you didn't initially intend to make it a pattern. You could say, oh, I really like the way I did this row with these pictures in it, the headline, whatever, and I want to replicate that, and I want to have consistency between my different pages.
So you're right. It can be after the exactly. That's a great point, Peter. That it could be after the fact. You don't have to immediately be thinking as like an architect of how I'm going to build this site. It's later on you find something, and one of the red flags always be if you're reusing something over and over, it probably could be a pattern because then it'll make your life a lot easier. So great point. So let's finish this up quick. So this is just the synced. It's a synced pattern. So how is this different? Again, I saved it as synced. When you look at it, it says it's synced, but what does that really mean? I'll show you what it means because we'll go back to, let me make it look a little bit, no, that's fine. So it just says synced headline. So let me go back to that test page. I'll add this to just 2 different pages just to show you what it does. So let's go back to this page. I'm going to delete everything here. So I'm starting fresh. Just delete this. All right, so let's say I'm going to insert that synced pattern. So back to, again, my patterns. This is the synced hero pattern. So here we go. You can tell it says synced headline. That's great. One of the differences you'll notice here is that for the synced one, I can't change anything. So as opposed to the unsynced one, I could go and change the image. I could change the headline. This thing is locked. So why would I do this? Well, it's because I want consistency. I want reuse. I want to make sure that, if I need to change something, I'll show you how you can change it. But again, think of it as this is a synced thing. So it's just to prove it's really synced. I'm going to save it on this page, and I'm going to go add another page. Let's add a second page here.
And while you're doing that, a great use case would be if you create like a subscribe to my newsletter, something like that, and you've got a layout that you like and you want to put it at the bottom of page, and you just want to use the same thing, and if you ever change the language, you want to universally change it all. I have my own, it's funny, I have my own names for these, and I called synced patterns global patterns.
Yeah.
Well,
and if you're using a page builder, that's the other confusing thing. Divi, which I used to use, calls it something different, and Elementor calls it something different. So that's another. We won't get into that too if you're using one of those tools. So here we go. Just for again, if you look at this, now I have 2 pages. Just to step back, I have 2 pages: test 1, test 2. They're both using a synced pattern on the page. Well, now, as I said, what happens if I actually want to change something on the pattern itself? Well, with a regular synced pattern, I would have to go into my my patterns over here. It's gonna take a second to load. There we go. here's my synced hero pattern. So let me change something obvious. I'll make a change to the background color, for example. So for this group, let's change the background color to something. There we go. So that's obvious. Let me just save that. So what just happened there? I changed the synced pattern. So because it's synced, the two pages that are using it are going to have that page reflected. I'll just show one of them so we don't have to waste time to prove that it's true. Let's go to the pages here and let's just look at test one. And so there it goes. So now it's got the color. So that's what synced meant. So in the past, that's all you had. You had non-synced, you had synced. Now, sorry, long way to get there. 6.6. What did it bring? It brought synced patterns with overrides. So what that means is there's a third flavor to this now, and this will be the last pattern I show before I shut up. This allows the best of both worlds. This allows you to use a pattern and lock certain pieces of it, but allow a person to modify other parts of it. So let's keep using this the same hero one more time. So I'm going to duplicate this. Again, I'm always just starting with the hero pattern that came with the theme. So this is, I'll call it just overrides hero. And this is synced. So let's duplicate it. So far it just looks like a regular old synced pattern, but this is where the magic will happen in a second. So when I go into my patterns one more time, so now I have 4 of these patterns in here. Oops, sorry. This is the overrides hero. At this point, again, this is now you're stepping back a little bit, thinking as a developer or designer, or just even for yourself, I suppose, of like, what pieces would I want to allow somebody to change? Well, most likely the image, right? Not everyone's going to want this picture of the side of a building. So here, one thing I can do is I can enable overrides. And just for the sake of argument, we'll say, so this is hero image. We'll enable that. So now people can change this. I'll allow one more change because we're kind like that. We'll allow people to change the headline too. So we'll say under the headline also, let's enable overrides, and we'll say this is the hero headline. I'm just coming up with these names. So when I save this pattern now, we'll just use it on one page, not to drag out this demo much longer, but we go back to create page 3 just to start fresh. Okay, so this is a brand new page. We're going to use the synced patterns with override, and here is how it's going to look different. Oops, down here. Here's how it's going to look different. So once again, patterns. I now have multiple patterns. So I want to use the overrides hero. So now that I've used the overrides hero, what can I do with it? Well, as you can see, it allows me to only change those 2 things that I set up. So the hero image, I can change that. I can replace it. Let me upload something. Oh yeah, it's these pictures. I have cat pictures here. Let's do this. There we go. One of these cats. Always good to have a cat picture handy. Pete's been missing MySQL. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Let's try that again. Can I do that? It's missing MySQL. Come on. Ooh. This is the playground. Seems like it's getting playground is not having fun. Oh, let's just change the hero headline then. So just something simpler than an image. So I changed this, and just to prove it, air publish my image again, because I'm using the playground version of my browser. My laptop is humming a little bit. Hey, let me get out of the page. Oh, you're missing a MySQL sting. That's funny. Let's start. Good thing about playgrounds is you can just start up a new one.
Yep.
But to not belabor that, because I think you saw the point of it. So the point of it was, I'll create one on the side while Peter's doing his thing. I could come back to that. So the point was, I was able to create a synced pattern, but only specify. I was able to control which things people could override and replace. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You have a pattern where, let's say 90% of it is fixed, but that 10% that you want to allow yourself or others to change, they can change that. So that's synced patterns with overrides. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then you have a quickish one, Peter, and then we'll get to Trish's question.
Yeah, I do.
Let me recreate
Try
that.
to find one that has, and while I'm about to pull the screen up, if anyone else has any other questions, please let us know. I almost hit the leave button. Ah. One thing that's important to say while I'm pulling this up, Ray, is
Yep.
right now with the overrides, the blocks that you can have variable content in
Yeah.
is, I don't know if you said it and I missed it.
No, I missed it, but that's you feel free. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's headlines, it's images, it's buttons,
Yeah.
and paragraphs.
Paragraphs. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not every block that you have, at this point. It's and there's a lot of logic behind it, because those are the actual, it's the words and the images, and then that interactive part, a button, that you can change when you have a layout that you have.
Yeah.
So what I was going to show here, and I'm just saying this is one of my test sites. My active theme is right here's 2024, a block theme. And when you go to the editor, as Ray has been doing, just to show this is where you see all the kind of that new site editing area. Well, what's nice is classic themes, which most of it's used. I don't know how many people here are still with classic themes. But classic themes, non-block themes, ones that don't use full site editing, they act differently, and it can be very, very frustrating when somebody is watching a demo and then they go to their site and it doesn't work anything like what they just saw. It doesn't look like it. It doesn't seem to act like it, things like that. And that one of the key things in the last year or two is because of block themes versus classic themes. They're just different. But what's nice is, and I just move this over to the Cadence theme, one of my favorite themes. You can see other themes that I like: Astra, Blockseat, Generate Press. But what's nice now is they're starting to close the gap between the differences. Some of that is on the theme developer themselves. And for example, Cadence is one where there's a lot more of the things that you see in a block theme, like the default 2024, for example. There's functions that weren't working in the classic themes. Now we're seeing more and more. One thing that's new to 6.6 is that under appearance, you do have a menu choice for patterns that now operates kind of like what the block themes have. I don't have a whole lot of patterns here, but it'll show all the patterns that are, but in that same kind of list. I should have had more patterns here, but this idea that the interface for classic themes and the interface for block themes are now getting closer together. Specifically, patterns now show up there, which is kind of really important because everything that Ray is showing. So everything that Ray is showing with how you manage synced and all works in both, which is great because it gives us a break when we're trying to teach something, knowing that a big part of our audience is in one type of theme or another. So I wanted to make sure that it was understood for people who aren't classic themes. If you're using Cadence or Astra or Blocksy or, and I don't know, our group is getting a little bit smaller, but, for those types of things, you can now, you can go into your appearance area and you'll have a menu choice for patterns. So I just want to make sure. You all set, Ray?
Yep. Let me show let me just finish that example real quick, then we'll go to Latricia. So it was shutting down my browser, that browser tab. That's the one thing about Playgrounds. I think it does take up some resources. So be careful if you're like I'm recording. You normally don't. This would not be the normal use case. Recording on Zoom while you're doing all this stuff. You have multiple tabs open. So anyway, I recreated that pattern I was showing earlier. So and I was able to upload. So So this is the synced overrides pattern. So I'm able to change that hero image, and I'm able to change the headline. So I can change this to whatever I want. But as you can see, everything else in the pattern, like the button text, I still can't change that. I can't change this additional text in between there. So as I said, it's the best of both worlds. It allows people to change certain parts of it, but then other parts, as I said, are kind of kept consistent. So,
Hey, Ray,
yep,
before you do this, it
Yep.
can't, if you click to the right of the publish button where it shows what the sidebar would be,
yes,
right there.
yep.
When you are on that, click now on that pattern. I don't know if you know, but click on the, just somewhere like you're going to edit the pattern.
Okay, yep,
You will see on the right, the
right,
content
yep,
that you can change.
yep. Another good point. Exactly. Yeah, and there's some little visual indicators. We didn't talk about this before, but things that are patterns, as we mentioned. So, I can add other stuff besides the pattern. I could add, again, whatever I want here. So visually, how can I tell the difference between what's in a pattern, what's not? Well, one thing is patterns are going to have this little diamond thing next to them. So that tells you there's something special going on. But yes, that's a great point too, Peter, that within the pattern.
And for our colorblind friends, it's also purple.
Yeah.
And Ray's colorblind, so.
Yeah. So it's some kind of different color here. And then, it'll tell you the two different content pieces. And actually, this is a good, real quick finishing thing too of, so on the publish side of things, as I said, rather than publish immediately, I can show that test again. So if I change this to tomorrow, it now says schedule. There we go. So that, I don't know if it did that before. I noticed that. So now it's a scheduled post if it hasn't been published before.
It does that. I am on an underpowered server for a lot of the things that I show. So, and then it's also, there's a number of things. And by the way, again, for any user, you're going, why is this? There's a lot of things that happen in the editor that are very browser heavy, right?
Yeah.
The browser is doing a lot of the thinking. So if you're like me and you have 100 tabs open and something else open and all, it can affect the experience.
Well, this one in particular, yeah, especially Playgrounds things, I said, because this is all running in the browser. You normally in Chrome, you can actually look at the browser. It tells you how much CPU, 388 megabytes. That's pretty big. That's kind of a heavy browser tab. Well, I guess compared to others. So, so Tricia, we didn't forget about you. We're going to go back to your question, which is around filtering posts and filtering blog posts. I have, and we'll jump back and forth. I know, Peter, you have a site where we can actually test out the solution, hopefully, but and everyone can unmute yourselves if you want to at any time. So we're a small enough group where that's fine. So Tricia, we're looking at your site here, which looks great too. I think everyone made excellent comments on this. So I assume that the problem that you have, or the thing you're looking for advice on, is on the blog page, I assume, correct? Yeah, so let me get to your blog page now. Okay, so this is nice. So this is your archives. It's showing some of your tags, etc. So is your question around how do I just, I guess, your options for filtering, like how many blog posts display and just different things you can do?
Yeah, thank you guys. And it's been a great session so far. I'm so glad that I found you by looking through the meetup. So,
Thanks.
and I've logged into the Facebook page, and we'll go back and read, because I'm sure some of the stuff that you're talking about, if I go back and listen to the videos. So what has happened is that the focus of this website is a blog page, and I do want people to be able to comment and also have guest writers for the blogs. And I have my words are not going to be completely clear, and it's part of what's been going on this whole listening here with going back and forth between templates and patterns in my head. That's the challenge for me with WordPress. I'm brand new to WordPress, and for complete clarity, I use the template to do this page, of like these sites that you can join and you can download it, and then you can populate it with your own stuff. So that's part of why my question about templates too is throwing me off. But so, and that's probably not even the right word. But long story short is that I had what was a blog post page, which is the blog grid page, right? And so then my goal was to be able to click the grid and then the right column come up, and then if you wanted to post about just say, you know, motherhood or something like that, anything that's relevant to motherhood would then populate a page, and you could just scroll through the, again, another word, archives of what has anything to do with thing. And there are pages there that you guys can't see because I don't have them public, and I do have a grid. I do have it where it's in a grid format.
Right.
That page is supposedly after you do it, because if you click Pennywise Voices, that's my girls, and that they're in a grid place look too. And then you click one of them, and then they'll take you to the blog that's relevant to what their name and everything was about. Oh, it's so confusing. I finally got somebody to talk to, and I don't have my elevator pitch correct. But my bottom line is that just trying to sort them, I've tried every single thing that is on the internet that I can find, and it's not working. Where all the ones that are similar together will come together. And I've named them. I've used and this is what I'm talking about. I can't remember my words. I've used it's not key term. Category.
Categories, yeah.
Yeah, all of that. And this is what I'm getting, that mess that's over on the right-hand side. It's awful. It's crazy.
Well, so you've done a lot of right things, and you are using the right words too, right? Sometimes it's the terminology. So just to step back a little bit and kind of cover what you said already. So this page we're looking at here, this is what's called like an archive page. So,
right.
Yeah, so an archive page is basically just a collection of something. So in this case, it's your collection of blog posts. So the archive, your theme is one possible way to control how this thing displays. So I had looked quickly, and I know others are probably looking too. This is what we like to do.
It's the hello, the hello thing.
Hello Elementor. So using Elementor as your theme, so you should have a lot of options with maybe too many options. You're gonna have a lot of options of how to solve this problem. So we'll try to pick the easiest one, or give you a couple of options here. So the theme itself, the Hello Elementor theme and Elementor itself are giving you probably this archive display, which is probably just, this is your this is your featured image. This is probably the title, et cetera, et cetera. But it sounds like you would prefer something that's a bit more, as you said, more of a grid view, but also would you want like the side, another term is sidebar too. So like this is a sidebar showing like your popular posts, your categories, etc., always on the right-hand side. So is the sidebar something that you'd also want displaying like on your blog page, on that main blog page?
Yes, and I put my mute on. When you hear me doing that, that means I'm yelling to my child, who is way more computer literate than I am and helps me out with a lot of stuff. I just want to let you know where it came from. So It came from the Kit Papa. You guys are aware of that, Kit Papa?
No.
KITPAP, Papa, the father Papa, KITPAPA.com.
Okay, it's a template.
Yeah, let me go to the one that it was too. Do you remember the name of the one we took it from, Maya?
And that's the template, basically that's where it came from, right?
Right. But I will show you on that. If you go to it, then you'll be able to see what the sort window is supposed to look like, but it did not translate over for some reason during it. So I'm trying to figure out which one.
Okay.
Oh, here we go.
Took it off.
Yeah. So in the vernacular, and this will drive everybody crazy in WordPress, the use of the words and what template means in one thing versus template means in another. I guess a template in Elementor is basically a child theme. Is that correct, Ray, as far as you're seeing?
Yeah.
So these are sites that are built on top of Elementor, which is built on top of WordPress, that are pre-designed like a theme would be, but using Elementor widgets and
it's a pre-built site, but it's kind of focused on it's kind of like there's another huge marketplace for this Envato, which is another one too, where they sell things like their theme forest, etc. So
right. And so Botox, that one you see with the lady in the middle, the second one down in the middle, That's the one I used.
Okay, good. So let's start with, let's look at this. Let's look at the live demo for a second, because maybe there's an example in here we can look at to see that looks more like you want.
And then you can even choose the visit site, which I don't know what the difference between demo and that is, but then you can see similarities of mine to that one.
Right.
But if you hit the blog version of that, that's what mine is supposed to be able to do. The recent post on the side.
Right.
And I'm supposed to be able to click anything that is hair extensions and everything that has to do with, I'm sorry, the second block down, hair care. Anything that has to do with hair would then come up on the right side of that page.
Right.
That's working for me. And mine don't even look like that at all because I've deleted some of those.
Right. So this is a great lesson. we couldn't thank you enough for this lesson, because there's a lot of things in this, but it's a great way to explain a couple of things. So first off, this piece on the side is really like the sidebar, as I said, and you do have it on yours. You just have it on the other side, so this is basically the same idea. This thing on the right of categories, etc. So what's different here is obviously the styling of this one looks a little bit different. The background colors, the fonts, etc. And then it's flipped, left side versus right side, right? So that's one thing. So the sidebar itself, you do have it on yours, but the thing is, you have it on only the individual blog entry. So if I'm looking at a specific blog post, that's where I see the sidebar. Okay. This one has it right now, and again, we can talk about how this how we can fix yours. But so in this one, I think it's probably the same thing. When I click on when I click on a specific blog post, the sidebar is still there. So this, I don't even call it template because that's confusing. This example site, the sidebar always displays. Yours, there's a setting someplace for your archive page where your sidebar is not display. It's only displaying when you click into a post.
Yeah, that's me messing with it. Before it was doing that. But what you'll notice on this one too is that when you click it, I don't think they have anything going on. Nothing changes. It stays the same. So it doesn't seem to be truly active. Well, that's my take, but I don't know.
Yeah, so the dermatology, they probably added categories to every one of these. So it might just be that their categories for the blog posts, just for demo purposes, are probably not set up. Yeah, they're not set up the same. So to talk about options, one thing that's gonna be a little bit of a challenge is, Peter, I don't know if I even have an Elementor site available to.
I don't,
and
I'll tell you something that we can do. And if you are a Facebook user and you want to, if you're part of our Facebook group, I can do my best to try to point you in the right direction, because Elementor is its own world, if you know.
Yes.
And it's huge. Yeah. The good news is it's huge.
It's a nightmare though.
Yeah. It can be a challenge, because we're going to show things like, I was like, oh, if you're just on this particular theme, I would say use a cadence block, and there's the advanced thing, and then you could have filtering now as part of it. And while you can use that with Elementor, that's like adding yet another layer that it's like, I'd rather have you figure it out.
Well, one thing, Trisha, we can try, if you're comfortable with this, is if you want to sign into your site, as an admin, are you comfortable with just sharing your screen so we can kind of look at it together and see? Like,
yeah, I'll give you a password to sign in. I'm on my iPad because
just send it. Don't send in the whole chat. Just send it to me for now.
Send it promptly to Ray.
I can change them all later. I have my computer open behind my iPad, but because my job makes me go into Zoom all the time, and to try to do them separately on my main computer is a pain in the butt. Yeah, I get logged out, and then I have to get the password from my boss again to get back in on her account.
Well, here, I just sent you a direct message on Zoom. So if you reply to that, go ahead. If you send me the user ID and password for that site, I'll at least bring it up.
Okay.
That's the hard part, is sometimes you just kind of got to get in there and go, it's this checkbox, it's this, it's very easy while you're doing that. It's very easy to, and gosh, I hate to use the word template, but because it's used so many different ways, but it's very easy to say, oh, this page uses this template, this layout design, and it's very easy, depending on how a theme is built, to change that and not know that you changed it, or and then to go back when it's like, oh, you have to use the archive template and not the page or something to that effect. So those are the types of things that we generally start looking for to see if there's some clear
Maya, do you know my
master
password?
control, if you will. Yeah.
All right, let me get it. I'm
Like-
terrible.
it's just-
No,
yeah.
no problem.
Oh,
And I may struggle a little bit because I haven't used Elementor in a while. No, actually, no, that's not true. I used Elementor for a project earlier.
Maya,
I haven't used Elementor for years.
Oh, really? Lucky.
can you help me figure out which password I used on this one? I think it's
And the ID that you're signed in with too, so.
to log into one of my accounts on
WordPress,
yeah,
you should be able to go to the manager and save.
where? Show me.
Yeah, you gotta go back to Google.
Where?
Google.
Oh. I'm just gonna try this one.
No, just,
These guys are waiting. I wanna get this.
yeah, but you're asking me for.
Okay, but can you do it then instead of me doing it? Because you're trying to talk me through something I don't know what you're showing me.
I'm just telling you to do one thing. That's all
Okay,
I'm
go
doing.
ahead, go ahead.
Put the circle, your eye.
Here?
Just don't say it out loud
We're recording this.
for all the internet to hear. For the 3 people.
Right.
Key.
Oh.
And who's left with it? Hey, so while you're doing that,
The
Bob, do you
circle.
have any specific issues you'd like us to cover before? I don't want to forget anybody, or Eileen or Jim.
This?
Want to put in the chat, or just let us know if there's something you want to cover?
WordPress?
I'm new to
Oh.
WordPress, so if you could talk about how media queries work in the WordPress environment.
How
Sure.
queries work?
Media,
Yeah.
you said
Media
media queries. Yeah,
Yes, please, thanks.
I can show that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Is that too like
That's-
broad?
For sure though, I don't know. Oh,
Well,
here
we
it
can
is.
show you. Ray's going to show you something quick. So
Yeah.
you like what size screen you're on?
Okay, that's
Yeah.
not gonna.
Oh,
Let me
man,
show us- So while Trisha, while you're looking for your thing,
Thank you.
let me show real quick back to the playground thing. So
Typing on.
basically like where you would put that or not put it, or is it in a plugin, or I just don't know
No.
how it works in the CMS.
sure. So by default,
Uh-huh,
your theme is handling some media queries for you. So for example, the theme that I'm using here, let me just change this back to published. Good, we'll play around with this one page. So if I, let me change it back from draft to publish, and then I could schedule it. Sorry. How do I switch that back? Let me cancel that. Let me switch it back to, say published yesterday, publish. So this theme will control, it has media queries on its own to some extent. So for example, this page, if I look at it, it's showing desktop view right now, but if I want to see what it looks like on mobile, that's the media query that's going to apply. So by default, the theme has media queries behind the scenes in the CSS. So a WordPress theme is basically a collection of, at least the older themes, now it's more complicated. It was a collection of like PHP script, but also CSS. So your theme would have CSS, which would control the media queries for your pages and posts. If you want to override that or get more specific, there's a couple of places you can do that. And that's depending on the level of specificity you want to get to, there's different places to put your CSS to override it. So let me switch back to desktop. So let's say, for example, on this page, I'm still in a pattern. Oh, I'm in a page. Let's say on this page, I want to add some custom CSS. So this is what theme am I using again? I'm using the 2024 theme. This one's a little funky. Where are the preferences on this? The CSS for this, because it's a full site theme, is in a strange place. It is under, I think it's an editor. Styles, I think. So your whatever theme you're using, this may be a different place than what I'm going to hopefully show you. Here we go. So I think it's under additional CSS. So here's where I'd be able to code a media query. And then you have to target, what does this media query apply to? Does it apply to, you know, a specific element? Does it apply to a page? Does it apply to whatever? So that's, depending on your theme, there could be multiple places where you could code additional media queries, or where you can change things.
Eileen, have you selected a theme? Are you using a theme under WordPress?
I haven't done anything, Peter. I'm
Yeah.
like babe in the woods.
Yeah.
It's all new to me.
So this is overwhelming.
Okay, it looks like it.
Yeah, so this is overwhelming. So one of the things, and this is the challenge between teaching, you know, people who will argue, that's not the right word, who will debate certain topics with me on this. But this is why certain classic themes and block packages make it easy for things like when you want to have granular control with media queries, because it's built into the theme and built into the blocks. And I know I'm a broken record when I say Cadence is a great example of one that does that, where then on the block level, you will be able to say, for mobile, it looks like this, for tablet, it looks like this, and for desktop, it looks like this at the block level, which is
Right.
very.
Let me show that real quick. Sorry, as you're doing that, Peter. So this is this is not in Playground anymore. This is a demo site that I typically use for our meetups. So in this site, this is using, oh, I think it's using the Cadence theme. Let me double check. So many themes. Oh, now it is. Sorry, let me flip over to that. Yeah, this is the problem doing too many demos. But anyway, as Peter was saying in here, I'm sorry to cut you off there, Peter, but it's, yeah, in here, the Cadence theme gives you enough visual ability to adjust things that you probably don't need to get to the level of a media query. I'm not sure if that's where you were going as well, Peter. So for example, the button, and you know, this may be the free version of Cadence too. So the pro version will give you even more control. But for example, there's a button's probably not a best example. Let me find something in here that's more of a demo-y thing.
Well, like a great example would be if you had a row, you know, or a section,
Better, yeah.
a background image, and you want that image and that height to be very different on a phone versus on a desktop.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
And then with Cadence, for example, and not only Cadence, there are, again, we have our favorites. When you go to put that in, you literally under your settings at that level, you can say, okay, use this, you know, do this, that,
Yeah.
those little icons there.
Yeah, so here at the mobile level, I can actually say, you know what, when I'm at mobile, I want the padding to be like this. I want super control. So that's basically what media query is doing, but this is more the visual way to say, okay, and I want to set it this way. So when I go to desktop, it looks like this. When I go to tablet, it looks like that. When it goes to, and the way these things work, this is always confusing too, is just like CSS, the specificity cascades. I have to remember my term. So if you put something specific at the desktop level, that value is going to cascade all the way down to mobile. If you put it at the mobile level, it doesn't go, waterfalls doesn't go back the other way. That's going to be the most specific setting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in general, like to be honest, I haven't coded a media query in a long time, because for the most part, using Cadence or a theme like this, more modern theme, you know, you can do all your adjustments here. You don't need to go to that level.
Right.
I like that it showed me you know, where you would go. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? That there is an option to go and update CSS.
There is, and it varies by theme. So again, I'm showing you Cadence. So Cadence, guess what?
Yeah.
There's a different place to do it. You can add a class here. You can add it other places too. You can add it at the page level, at the page settings. I guess.
One area that we haven't gotten deep into, and it'll probably be before the end of the year, where I really want to experiment, and it's with a block theme and the whole topic. You would hear this phrase, this thing called theme.json, which is code that kind of sits there controlling sort of everything that happens on a block theme. Again, not classic theme. That's a different. I got to draw a picture of how all this stuff works together because it gets confusing. I understand that, and it's especially hard when you start following tutorials that are like talking about something that isn't the world you're in, which is why we always try to at least find out where you are. Like if you're not using any theme at all and you want to follow all the new training stuff, then you're in the block theme world, which would make the most amount of sense. And then finding out, and the good news is a lot of the stuff with the media queries, so knowing what size is, everything's built to be responsive anyway. And then using things like, and I haven't really gotten into this yet, but the variable font size, where that the font is actually scaling based on the site. So you don't have to do a lot of the stuff that we were doing 6 years ago or whatever, and pick a date out of the air. Everything is always progressing. So there's certainly a level of control at CSS. There's theme JSON, but there's also the things that are built into the theme that have made things easier to work with. So
like the less you do with WordPress at my level, the better.
Yeah.
Well, we found this. I'm a developer by background, and I had to get over the initial hump of trying to solve problems with code, because in general there's either a plugin or something in your theme or something that can do it for you. If you're getting to the point of doing coding stuff, stop and take a step back.
I'm used to Drupal and the code injector.
I've never done Drupal or Joomla or any of that kind of stuff. So.
That was a real long time ago for me.
I got into so we got Trisha's site. I'm
you.
in. Yeah, no, that was a great question, Eileen.
No, and it's important, Dre, before you go further on this.
Sure.
So Eileen and Bob, if you're not using, for example, Elementor, you'll see things here that are not on your site or not on a site that you might be building.
Okay.
Keep in mind that any of the plugins, the tools, the themes will change. What we do our best to do is, while we will talk about specific things, is also try to talk about the concepts behind it. Things will work on other things, but just differently. So,
and one thing that's definitely going to be apparent, I haven't even looked yet, but if this is Trisha, this has nothing to do with you or how you've done anything on the site, but in general, if you've purchased this, I'm guessing I'm going to see a lot of plugins on this site. I could be wrong, but because a lot of these, it's actually not too well. Yeah, okay, all right. So a lot of these prepackaged things, because they don't know how anyone's going to use the site. It said Botox, but it's probably the same site that the template that they use, the same thing they use over and over for multiple types of businesses. So a lot of times these like Theme Forest or Kit Papa, whatever. One thing that makes your life really confusing is there's a ton of plugins in here that you probably don't even use, or like you may not ever use. But anyway, so that makes things a little bit more confusing of just troubleshooting stuff.
Yeah, no, that's me. They didn't in their. You'll
I'm trying to be kind. I figured it was.
You'll see on their page, and that's how come I got to the point where, trust me, I stopped for like 3 months before I found you guys. I had to stop. My brain was like, I couldn't handle it no more.
Well, at some point, you may want to. Yeah, at some point, you might want to go back and clean up some of these things if you're not using.
Yeah, it's not even some of them probably from today.
Yeah,
on their site though, they're at the end once you bring the stuff over, there's a page that you go to that tells you exactly what you need. Okay, so besides the fact that the theme that I'm using, it tells you all you need. You don't need very much. So they do keep it simple, but I complicated it.
No, that's fine. All right, so let's start at the beginning. I definitely
called filter everything, which is a good plugin.
Yeah.
you know how to use
But you
it.
may not need it though. That's what I'm hoping.
Exactly.
I'm
Exactly.
hoping.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of walk you through my thought process and Peter certainly chime in here if I'm even going down or making this overcomplicated. So first thing I wanted to see is what that blog page on your site, what does it really point to? So the first place I went to may not seem intuitive, but I went to your menu to see, okay, I know we clicked on something blog. What is that really pointing to? And it is good news. It is pointing to a page. It's the posts page called blog. So this we'll see if how much we can just modify the page itself, where we may have to go somewhere else to change how the layout is. So as I went to pages, all pages, I can see there's a blog page here. Let me first just view it, make sure we're looking at the right page. Yep, that's the one, right? This is the one we want to play around with. To be extra safe, I don't want to, well, I'm not going to save anything, so I'm going to do this with you. I was going to do a duplicate, but that actually, in this particular case, a duplicate may not allow me to make changes to it. You know,
Dude, if it works, save it, please. Don't worry
yeah,
about
okay,
it. It can't make
okay.
me any worse, and I do have the backup and stuff.
Okay, and there's okay, that's good to know. All right,
You're-
so let me go in first and edit, and let's see what we're allowed to do in the editor. Is there anything in this page? I'm guessing it's not. Good. So this was a funny thing. We talked about this a couple of meetups ago. Your blog is a funny page, and not yours. I'm saying WordPress treats a blog page funny in the sense that you may think, you know, this is, if you're new to WordPress, like, hey, is this magic? Why am I just seeing this? Where did all those blog posts, all that thing I just saw, where is that? That's not being controlled by anything that I'm editing here. That is being controlled through your theme. So let me explain that one more time. So if I go to the settings at the WordPress level and go to reading,
Yep.
this is what's really telling your theme which page to point to for your blog posts. So that tells us something. Here's a couple of things that tells me. First off, if you want to show more than 4 blog posts, this is how you change that. So if you want to show 5, 6, whatever, this setting will do that. So just to prove that, this is a minor thing. I'm going to change this to 6. Okay, I'm going to save that. So there, it's saved. So now if I go back to your site, instead of seeing 4 blog posts, we should see 6. So I'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, maybe you only have 4. Oh, this paging is turned on too. Aha, okay. Now we're getting somewhere. So now,
Ugh. I'm scared
So-
you're gonna in a minute.
No.
There's another page that where you're talking about how many it's gonna show.
Yep.
That should be the one that's the grid. But I don't have that. I have not been on this page in a minute now, to be honest. I probably should have played around with it today, knowing I was going to be in this class.
Yep.
But I didn't know we'd get to it and all this stuff. So I'm
Let me
thrilled.
look at the customizer. This would be another place for me to see it. So the customizer, depending on how this theme is implemented, if I go to the blog, we may have options in the customizer. I'm not seeing anything in here for the blog itself to allow me to change.
Single post, blog post, and archive page. Those were notes that I wrote down too, because they all
Correct.
exist. And
Correct.
that, ugh.
But
My
those,
blog page is supposed to look like a grid. It's supposed to be like, 4 across, or to make 6 across, like you're saying, whatever you want, and then downwards, to be like a grid. So that one is not showing up right now. It's there in the pages, but I just don't
Yeah,
have
so-
it active in the menu.
Right, Ray. So check under pages
yeah,
and look for it, because if there's one that's closer to what Trisha wants, then it's a matter of
oh, okay.
Unfortunately, yeah, unfortunately, I brought back all the pages in that template, because
Okay.
if you go into what's deleted, you'll see 100 of them. I brought them back, and then to try to make sure that I didn't delete any functionality, and then bringing them back in one by one to make it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's two,
Ugh.
I see 2 pages called blog. So my
Yes.
guess is check.
The
One's
one in
classic
all
editor.
caps. Yeah, the one in all caps should be the real one.
That's the
how
current one.
I distinguish their stuff from my stuff. I put all caps on mine all the time.
Okay,
Right.
then I would check the other one.
Oh, this is the 4 one, right?
Yeah, that's the one you can go from 4 to 6 to blah, blah, blah. That was the hope of what the grid would look what the blog page would look like when you first go to it. And then when you click that one, that's when it's supposed to go to the single.
Okay.
This might be something you guys need to save for another class. I don't want to eat up everybody's time.
No, that's okay. Let me look at a couple of things because yeah, the additional confusion in here is like you said, there's some stuff going on from the template and some stuff going on from
Right.
Elementor. So and this thing I don't like with Elementor is the structured piece. So this is just the regular heading, this is the container. And then in here, there should be here's your blog loop grid. Okay, so
Woo, thank you for bringing that word up too. That's written down in my notes that I forgot. All you guys have a video on that, the query and the loop. So I figured,
right, which is not maybe going to apply to this because this is a different block than what we talk about in that. So that one we're using the WordPress query loop. This is an Elementor query loop, which is going to be the loop.
The concept will be similar though.
Right.
Anytime you have a query loop, it says, go look at the posts and go through them based on, and there may be some filtering and things like that. But it's basically the little piece of code that says, go look up all the posts and bring them back to me.
Right.
And there may be some ordering and there may be some filtering, but that's basically what a query loop is. And pretty much anything that's using the loop, because that itself is that's its own name, but that's pretty consistent across.
So Tricia, if I understand though, this page I'm looking at here, this was a page that you imported from that from wherever you purchased this theme, correct? Like this.
No, I think that's one that I built from scratch. So
You
that was just using the loop.
You did a good job. That's what confused me. It's like, okay, you built this from scratch, which is fine.
Yeah, just using the template, not the
Right.
template, the regular page and the thing.
What's throwing me though is this page itself, the one we're looking at here, the actual archive page. I'm still trying to figure out if you have any ability to modify that. So let me go back to WordPress.
Yeah, it's not even a necessary page. That's why I was thinking archive is something that's supposed to be in the background. That's another note that I wrote.
It is, but you can control, and I'm trying to think. So in Elementor, that archive might be in the theme builder, perhaps. Yeah, here we go. Here's the archive. Here we go. Here's your categories. Oh, this is the category archive. This might be it though.
And even when I get over there, please, that's what I wrote down when I asked you guys about templates a minute ago.
Yeah,
that's what's considered.
I think this is it. So again, for Elementor is basically, I don't want to make it too confusing, but back in plain old vanilla WordPress, this whole site editor thing we're talking about, Elementor has its own version of that, which kind of came before the WordPress version.
Okay.
So this might be the place though, in this container up here. This is still the heading. Here's the loop grid that I think actually does. Well, this is 3 columns though. I would have thought, do you get where, so Peter, where I'm confused about is what template's being applied here.
You were just in a place where you saw the archive. What else was there? It was almost like a list of templates.
Yeah, let me go back. It's in this theme builder. It should have been in here. So if I look at archive, that's the only one in here, but this is the categories archive. And see, Elementor has this too. Maybe this is it as well. They have a loop item. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Popular blog post. One of these is being applied to your blog.
But so except for this one thing very curious to me, Ray.
Yeah.
Is if you go all the way back to the page that is being used as the blog page. So you know how you went.
This. Yeah, that's this one.
This.
Oh, it says blog dash duplicate
page. This is using. It just said classic page non-Elementor. When you look at it.
The blog duplicate 7245.
Yeah, when you look at what that is in the list of pages.
Oh.
One thing that the page builders will tell you generally is if the page builder is actually being used on a page or if it's using something else. So if you went to the list of pages.
Yeah, let me go back here.
See how you have you know, the first one, classic editor, Elementor. So it's, you know, it's again, the classic editor.
Block editor, yeah.
But I noticed in one of the blog posts, it said, yeah.
No,
so-
this is the page. It's the 7245. It's this guy.
Right. So it's using post page block editor. It's not using Elementor there. So it's,
Right.
so it's not using the Elementor theme builder at that point. It's using, if
But just to confuse things, sorry,
yes,
it's for the page. It's using this as basically the pointer to the page. But
Correct.
the formatting of it, the Elementor's, this is basically Elementor's version of full site editing. So it does have a template apply to the archive page, if you know what I mean. So
let me tell you what my approach would be. And,
Mhm.
and what's hard is because Trisha already purchased something that came a certain thing, just like I would do a lot of stuff, is I would create a new page
that's what she did.
that had the query loop just the way I wanted. And that's what I would point the blog page to.
Yeah, and I think that's where you were going down, Trisha. I think this other, let's call this blog 2, or the small case blog. What Peter is saying that is if we replaced the big case blog with this one, this is the one that would allow you to really edit this and change it as you like, which I think is where you were going, right? Because you had already created this kind of layout. The only thing you're probably missing this layout, you're missing the sidebar on the side.
Yeah, I think theirs is it's gallery, right? That was the one I was gonna duplicate. See, that's their
Okay.
all small case stuff.
You're
Is
saying, yeah, the one that they have, I closed it under live demo.
what theirs would have been named. That's the one I wanted to look like the one with
Right.
So I'm just trying to duplicate that one. And that's probably small case blog. I mean, I don't know which one it is. It's not showing up.
Yeah, so yours is a little bit different because yours is first off 2 columns instead of 1. You're allowing on this page.
That's my original stuff, though. I don't have theirs.
Right,
I don't have
right.
theirs at all. But the issue was, I think I know how to go back and copy theirs. I
Yeah.
just don't know which one it is right now off the bat. I haven't been in this for like a month and a half now. Seriously, I had to take a break from it. But my problem is, go ahead.
I would start with that. I would start like if you could look at this demo site that they have and find out which page this is. It probably comes with all the parts that you need. It probably comes with the sidebar. It probably comes with the right. And then you could just mess around with. Let's say you don't want one column. If you want to change them to 2, it's a lot easier starting with something and changing it than trying to create it yourself. If you know what I mean.
Right, but then I'll be right back to square one about what my question was. That's why it's unfortunate that you had to get lost in this mess of stuff because the main question was how to create a search where I can just say, give me everything that has to do with fashion, give me everything that has to do with motherhood. And that's what you see my names are in my posts, my categories in my posts, those are those. Anything to do with resilience, anything to do with inspiration. When
Right.
you look at my post, all the tags that I created, the categories that I created, not tags, categories.
Right.
I can't get it to sort by that. So back to that page where you see where they were showing us about the hair or about beauty.
Yep.
Those words should replace those words when I use that page template, and then I should be able to do that sort. I was not able to do that. So maybe because I have you guys now, my job is to bring it to that level first and then reach back to you.
Right, yeah, because next month, because you're right, this is different. This is actually another archive page. This is a category archive page. This is not the blog archive page anymore. So yeah, I think get that first blog page looking like how you want it to go with the layout. And then
right, the category page though should represent the blogs though, right? So like if you click that, once you hit the category, if you say, give me everything with Botox, all the Botox blogs should come together on that page.
Yes.
Right.
The way they do is this is a widget, to throw another this is a widget of categories, and WordPress will gather all the associated category blog posts for that category for you. You don't have to do anything around that. It's just the displaying and sorting piece that you may have to tweak afterwards after retrieving.
But it didn't even do that. It didn't do that. But I'm not at the right level to show you guys that. But that's the main question. I can duplicate that page. That's nothing.
Okay.
That's opening it up, taking their stuff out, putting mine in.
I would say get to that point. Yeah, Trisha, if you can get to that point and then come back for our one, well, you can either come back for our one next month, or I think that's gonna be easier to look at it that way, because then we could talk back and forth about it. We can start with you again. It's our summer school sessions is what we're doing, so we'll keep it's a good one. I there's a lot of meat to this one to look at. So.
Yeah, and it'll give us a little time. Give me a little time to look up. Like I'm right now on Elementor.com. Help taxonomy filter widget. So
yeah, just give me your emails, and then we'll talk behind the scenes to make sure that I'm ready and prepped, so that anybody who needs this stuff, we're not using all this.
Well, you're going to be on. So Trisha, you're going to be on the Facebook group. So we're active on there. So just like when we post the thing, we try to do it usually.
That way we post it. Yeah.
Yeah, the second Tuesday of the month. So for August, somewhere around there. Once we post it, just say, hey guys, I'm ready for it. Do you mind looking at my site? And then
very good.
Are you on our Facebook group?
I'm looking for it, making sure I am right now. So that's
Hartford WordPress. Yeah.
Okay. There's the link there, and also we have links.
City of Hartford, WI Canal, WordPress beginner. WordPress.
I can put it in. Where is it? I have the link someplace.
I put the two in the chat. I put links.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go to the first one's the Facebook one. This was great. Again, I'm sorry we're not able to completely resolve your problem. But yeah, this was a good, Eileen's a good learning experience too, because I think this is real life. Sometimes we have our demo things. It's like, oh, it's a blank slate site, but it's good to look at a site that has multiple pieces. It's a bit more complicated. So
yeah,
the answers are different.
And this will be in the deconstruction, reconstruction of what Trisha's trying to do, and for anybody following this is this idea of saying, okay, have a query loop that outputs the content the way you like it. Then you're adding a layer of filtering to that query loop based on wherever tool you use that allows that. Then you're going to go into this all the way back to the beginning of WordPress settings. Reading the blog post is now going to point to that page, because now you're creating a page versus just linking to something that the theme is predefining. So you have total control over what you're pointing to. And that's one thing I see lost a lot. I created this whole thing and now it doesn't look anything like it. It's like, because your settings are pointing your blog to this other page, that default page, versus all the work you put into your custom page. So
yeah, and it's supposed to be this, you buy this thing and then you transfer it over. I come from a computer background of an end user for things like PowerPoint and all this other stuff, and even the Adobe packages, I can do pretty good. And it's nothing like that at all. And then when they start throwing all those plugins.
And I hate to say, but this has been one of the bad things about WordPress since the beginning. Like, you purchase a theme and that's always been that. How come what I get doesn't look anything like it? It's like, well, because it's like you bought the desk from IKEA and it comes with all these parts. You're like, what do I do? How do I put this?
With zero instruction, right? That's what they're going for. Yeah. But this WordPress thing, I've never been as baffled, and you could just keep doing the same.
I'm telling you, Trisha, your site looks good. You're at that point already too. Even that page that you put together, like that's good. I think you're getting a lot closer to it. So I think, bring it to the next one. You get it set up to that point, and we'll do that from the top. We'll look at it a bit more. So I appreciate you bringing the example.
Lastly, I'll say, if you guys have not done this, I need to go back through all your work. But this is the thing that gets, like, if we're talking about just blogs alone, the difference between an archive page, a blog page, and a single blog page, like that all can get so confusing, because all of those need to be part of my page. Like when you click girls, they go to a single page, but then the blog grid page is a whole thing. And I didn't even understand the whole archive page. I understand a little bit more now that you were talking about, but I thought that was something that was supposed to be behind the scene that nobody else was supposed to see. That's just where all my stuff was housed at, so.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
Ray, real quick, maybe, that's kind of resurrect. We did some of these things years ago,
Yeah.
kind of, how these parts worked in. Now it's changed, but maybe that's what summer school, the first part is sort of like the primer is, if you will. That kind of sense.
Yeah, this will be a good one, I think, you're right, connect the pieces, but do it a little bit tighter of just the blog pieces. I think that one, I know Peter, because Peter did it, like you said, back when we were meeting in person, a long time ago, about like, here's how all the parts of WordPress fit together. But I think, yeah, we can use yours as an example to talk about, as you said, a single post versus archives versus the blog page and how the parts fit together. So that'd be good. Yeah, that gives us something to do.
Bring a little clarity to the chaos.
Yeah.
Templates and loop grids and how they all work.
Yeah, I know, and the names get confusing, the templates, the patterns, and all that stuff. So yeah, where's Walt?
Try to put it in like a flowchart hierarchy thing, because, and actually, there is still that hierarchy of how all the templates work.
Yeah, I share that on occasion, but
show that to somebody and it's just like it explodes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
I think that, so yeah, let's stop it there. We don't have enough for the next 6 minutes, but so we'll pick that up. We definitely look forward to doing that. I signed out of the site, Tricia, and I didn't save any password stuff. So if we look at it again next time, you can just recreate a new ID or password for us.
Okay.
But yeah, so
I want to answer Eileen's question real quick, because
sure.
Eileen, would you be willing to also join us in the Facebook group? Are you a Facebook user or not?
I can show a real quick way to export the entire site. This literally will just take a second. So let me show you my lazy way. Yeah, my lazy way that I would do it, and it's actually a good test. I'll make sure it works. I'm assuming it's going to work. So here's so how, let's say I've created a site in Playground. It looks good. Life is good. I'm in the middle of updating the page. Oh, that's all right. So let's say I want to save this, because that's one of the problems of Playground. The storage in this case is none. Let me first make sure I can install plugins. So the first thing is, when you're using Playground, make sure you have the plugin, the network access checked off. So that means you can install plugins from the repository.
Where did you go to see that, Ray, real quick?
It was when you launch Playground. It's up in this, yeah, in these options.
Yeah,
and you have the site. Let's say you make changes to it. What I would suggest, because your site's probably gonna be pretty small, is there's my go-to plugin, the free one, which is all-in-one. You would go to add new plugin. I would use all-in-one WP migration. I hope it works. This would be interesting. Let's try this. All-in-one WP migration. This is my normal go-to because it's free and up to a certain size site. If I install this, activate it. This will make a local, and now I have a new plugin on the side. I'm going to export this to my computer. I'm going to export it as a file. And this one shouldn't be too big. So behind the scenes, it's zipping up everything, my database. Yeah, it's only 4 megabytes. And then you click on it. It's downloaded it. Now here's, normally that's how I quickly import and export sites. Now here's the real question is, let me close up my browser. I'll get rid of the blog thing. Will it import that? So let me start up a new session in Playground. And the first, again, I should follow my own advice. First thing I'm gonna do is set my network access again. So in order to import it, I need that same plugin installed. So I'm going to go back to plugins. I'm going to add that same plugin. Again, it's a free plugin from the repository. It's all in one.
So while you're doing that, so Ray is doing this as you would do with any website. In other words, using the backup plugins to make a file and grab it. So I'll be really curious, because I'll show you another thing real quick.
This is probably not going to work. I'll tell you why it's not going to work. It's because I don't have, well, we'll see. I don't think this is going to work.
I don't.
Oh, 2 gig. They changed the file size, the free one to 2 gigs. Wow, that's nice. I just noticed that. That's totally neither here nor there, but I think this is not going to work because I think that, well, we'll see. So normally it gives you this warning, which is fine, proceed, it's going to update. And again, I didn't make a change to really prove, but no, I guess it will work.
No, it worked.
Yeah, it worked.
All right.
I thought it was going to make me log in again, and I never logged in with an ID and password, but I guess this playground site is not set up to require it, or maybe yeah, there's something magic happening behind the scenes where it didn't require me to do it.
So Ray, as the clock is ticking, if you go to the top right,
Mhm.
at the very far right,
Oh, there's it's always simpler.
so downloading and restoring from a zip file. But I'll
do
tell
that
you
too.
what, for anybody who's interested, I do have on my list to really tear apart Playground, to build blueprints, to be able to import and export, because it's a fascinating thing to do and be able to say, hey, I built this, anybody want it? I'll pull the file. So I don't have that all right now, but it's using all of those tools too. So if you come back,
good.
Eileen, we'll have more on.
It does give you a fake ID and password too. I forgot about that. It gives you admin and password on your own because it doesn't matter. It's just any local thing. Yeah. So yeah. So Peter's example probably better. I didn't know that was up there, Peter. I just done that. I just went through the whole rigmarole. Mine though will work for anything. It'll just work for Playground. So, all right, now we're done.
You sure?
6.6.
Never-
Again, if you wanted more on it, we put that link to that Learn WordPress. That's another. I think they do a lot of great work too in terms of meetups. So check them out for any other stuff on 6.6. And definitely come back next month. Bring us any other questions and things. We're happy to look at them, especially during our summer sessions here. So,
Cool.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining. Stay cool. Have a good rest of your day. Take care.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.